Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Overton. I'm an artist in education, and this week we are going to begin a paleo art project that reflects the unique fossil record that we have here in Arkansas. But before we begin, I'd like to share with you a few examples of different types of fossilization. First, I would like to begin with preserved remains. These are remains of insects and other organisms in a delicate tree resin that has hardened over time and is called amber. The next type of fossilization I would like to share with you is one that we really recognize very easily. This type of fossilization is called an compression, to where the organism has been compressed in some type of sedimentary rock, and then it reveals the different types of organisms within that. This is an example of a bacillopod, and it comes in on our geological record or our fossil record as the Sullivan period, which is very long ago, about 443 million years ago. Another fossil that we usually are able to easily recognize is a form of what we call petrification or pre-mineralization. This is an example of a petrified wood. You can see the graining. And here is another small example of petrified wood. Pre-mineralization is the process where something is captured in water, and the organism, that once it is in this water mixed with all these minerals, the water begins to flow through the object and ends up replacing the organism's main structure and builds it with these little building blocks of minerals. We have 100 different types of mineral that are what we call rock builders. Now, this is another example of pre-mineralization. This is actually a whale rib bone, and when it settled down into that dark, deep waters of the ocean, those rich minerals began to replace it. And over the periods of time, the more minerals that it absorbed, over time it became very hard like stone, and it also darkened because of the minerals that it was surrounded with. Now, these are very unique. This is actually the vertebrae of that same whale species, and again, you can see all of the details of the bone, and you can also see how it has also, with that pre-mineralization process, has become very dark. Another example of pre-mineralization in marine animals is often when we go onto the beach, we can find fossilized shark teeth. And again, we know that they're the older they are because of how dark their mineralization has appears. Now, part of another area in fossilization is known as a copyright, or what we call a dung-stone. These are actually fossilized, for the lack of a better word, poop. And this is one of the more rare types of fossilization because we know the natural soft characteristics that feces has. This is very unique because it is the fossilized coprolite, the dung of the whale example that I just shared with you. Now, this would also follow into a category that we call casting or a mold. the only way that this could have possibly have survived, and we're able to see all the different shapes and curvatures of this coprolite, is because it was more than likely formed internally in the animal as it was going through that pre-mineralization process. Other examples are consecrations, which sometimes look as though they could possibly be in a coprolite category, but when it's studied and revealed, the coprolite is actually in the interior part of this structure, and then it was just the sedimentary rock or the mud that was kind of agitated around this as it was drying and going through the fossilization process. Examples like this provide a lot of information about how these what these animals' lives were like, what they ate, and also what the environment was around them. Now, let's move to our inspiration for our paleo art project we're going to do today. This is another example of what we call casting or a mold type of fossilization, and it is the fossilized remains of what we call an ammonite. This ammonite was a creature that lived up until the mass extinction event, what we call the KT boundary, when it was a global extinction that wiped out 75% of the living organisms that we have here on our planet. Now, this was formed by this kind of nautilus-shaped creature, and when it died, it kind of settled into some clay here in Arkansas. The hard shell of the ammonite remained after the soft organism kind of decayed away. It filled with clay. Over time, it hardened. The outside of the edge kind of decayed away also, and it left this very interesting clay example. Now, this is very rare and super special. This is an ammonite special species example of a fossilized remain of this ammonite. It would have been like a little section in here. What makes this so special is the fact that the little organism, we're able to see the organism inside of this little fossil. And this fossil actually comes in to our Pennsylvanian and Mississippian period of time, which roughly makes it about 340 million years old. Now, parts of most of our fossil record is made of sedimentary rocks. However, there have been catastrophic events that have created a metamorphic rock that has basically kind of smashed all these little different types of organisms into this very hard, almost concrete-like stone. This is an example of a major extinction event, the KT boundary, that occurred 65 million years ago. Now, these are just a small example of the different types of fossilization examples that we have collected around the world to create this fossil record. Now, in addition to other organisms that have been embedded into this KT boundary are examples of these crinoids, which we will be drawing into our art project today. It is perfectly round. They would be very tall. It was kind of in the family of the corals, and each little section is very perfectly. It looks like it was man-made and engineered. These different sections could be longer than others, and they're quite prevalent all through our KT boundaries and our previous fossil records, and at this point are now considered extinct. So these are inspirations for our art project, so let's get started on that. Students, now we're going to begin the art portion of our project that is going to be a representation of the fossil record that we have here in Arkansas. And today we're going to begin drawing our KT boundary. Beginning up here in the upper left-hand corner of our paper, a little bit over from the edge, we're going to begin to create a line, and notice that this line is not a hard straight line. It slightly kind of wiggles and turns, but it is very random and does not create a roller coaster effect. Next, we're going to come back over close to this area and begin to create that another line showing that this layer of rock has been separated and creates this interesting kind of area in the middle where our ammonites will be located. After we draw this edge, it looks very flat. It doesn't have any depth to it. So we're going to just add a few simple little contour lines in here to show that this little edge does have some thickness. Notice how I'm bringing these up and kind of branching them off. I like to use a connection that is an acute angle and creates like a little Y or V shape. We just need a few of these here and there. Now, don't forget the edges of your paper. This also is going to have a little bit of contours lines in it. I like to pull a few around the edges here and there. They can be singular or branched off. Next, we're going to create the little crinoids. Those are those little broken stems, shapes of those broken sea lilies that are embedded into this KT boundary. Those could be embedded in different directions, so some will be looking straight down at it. It almost looks like just a perfect little circle. Perfect little circles with a little dark center in it because it's like a hollow straw shape. Spread those around your paper, and again, thinking about the different sizes. They would have been different ages or little parts of it. And again, filling in the center to create that little straw. After you add several of those sprinkled around your into your KT boundary, next we're going to do those as they would be embedded in, laying on their side. Notice how I just make a simple little kind of area of curved lines, and then simply doing a little U shape into it. We're going to cap that off at the end and add a little kind of hole. Again, spread those around your paper in different directions, shapes, and sizes. Okay, students, now this is what your KT boundary should basically look like. Now we're going to place and draw our ammonites. They're in this area that's being revealed between the KT boundary separation. Now these basically are going to look almost like these little shell examples right here. A simple little swirl design. To begin, let's just practice drawing one. And we are going to begin. I always like when I'm doing something that's in a circle to warm my hand up. Kind of imagine how big this is going to go. Imagine you're making that swirl. And then just commit. Start out. As you're drawing it, just you're pulling that circle out a little bit wider. You don't want it to be all smashed down upon itself. And we're just going to make a couple of revolutions around here and stop. Now we're just going to simply just take a curved line and cap that off. Now, how many are we going to put in here? A good rule of design when you're grouping things together, a collection, let's say, is to use odd numbers because it creates a good little visual sort of bounce in the person's eye that's looking at your artwork. So let's get in here. We're going to make another one. And see how I'm running into my KT boundary? I'm just going to imagine that's going on, growing, and I'm going to come back. I'm hitting this one now, so now I want this to look like it's kind of underneath this one. It's like it's piled on top of it. So I'm just going to cap it off right there to give that illusion that it's overlapping it. Now, let's draw another one. Doesn't matter where you put it on your paper. It could be overlapping underneath this one or on top of it. It could be big, it could be little. So I'm just going to go ahead and put one here. Now we have 3. That's a nice visual number. And that's where we're going to stop this lesson, to our drawing portion of our lesson.